So good afternoon, everybody. I think it's afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and get started, continue eating. I'm going to back into the camera frame. So if you're on Zoom, you can see me. And tell you who I am. I'm Alan Roberts with Keystone Association Managers. I'm in Savannah. Tracy Smith is our licensee in Tennessee. So she holds a Georgia Community Association Manager license, but lives in Tennessee. And she works with a group of our clients where she can work from Tennessee. But she's here with us. And I want to talk a little bit about condominiums, condo closings, and hopefully something you can take away that will help you with closings you have for condominiums and for HOAs. I told you I'm in Savannah. I grew up in Raleigh. I started managing in Raleigh, and we had an adverse opinion of realtors, or real estate agents in general. And I know realtors and real estate agents had an adverse opinion of us. So I make my way down to Georgia, and it's a little different. In Georgia, there's a license required. We're licensed through the Real Estate Commission. I'm a broker in Georgia. Our company is a brokerage company in Georgia, licensed by Georgia Real Estate Commission. So we have at least a governing authority over us. And with that, I started working with realtors, found a different side of really what's happening, and joined the Association of Realtors, the Savannah Area Realtors. I serve actively on the RPAC committee. I serve actively on the service committee, and we're going to plant some trees next month. Yay. And I serve actively on the bylaws committee. The bylaws committee is the boring committee, but the other two are a lot of fun to work with. I also, because of who I am in association management, I'm in a group called Community Associations Institute. That's our trade organization. And I serve on the Georgia Legislative Action Committee. A lot of bills going through their legislature this year. We're trying to influence bills. It's not a PAC. But we're working with the legislature in Georgia on those bills. And I also serve on their magazine committee. So they let me write an article or two. And that's a little bit about who I am. Our company, and just tell you what our mission is building valuable, strong, healthy community associations. I'm going to get into a little bit of what a community association is, but building valuable, strong, healthy community associations. The whole point of community associations is to increase value, right? Increase values of the homes that are in it. So I feel like this is what we need to do to increase the value. And then, you can read if you want our core values. Tracy does not see this because she's on the phone every week, but every Wednesday, all of our managers see our core values and what we stand for, how we build those strong communities. But to get to know you a little bit, I want to do an interest survey. So what were you doing in 1998? 1998. Were you in college, in your career, high school? Anyone? 1998?
College.
You were in college. Here you go. So he participates. I got off the Zoom. He participates, so you get something for participation. If you were here on Zoom, he just got a scratch-off ticket. Double it. Okay, so what were you doing in 1998?
Selling bulldozers.
I'm sorry?
Selling bulldozers.
Selling bulldozers. You were in your career. You were in your career with something?
Selling condos.
You were in real estate. Okay. Real estate. Anybody else?
High school.
High school. Okay.
See?
Okay. The young one.
I was 13.
You were 13, even younger. 13 is high school or junior high or middle school? You don't even know. He went to the fun school because he can't remember it. So 1998 is when I started managing. I started working a little 5,200 lot POA in Bunn, North Carolina, Lake Royale, a 365 acre lake. I was looking up, trying to figure out, grow, learn what to do. A couple of years later, I went and started working as a portfolio manager in Raleigh and learning the business from a mentor who was the owner of HRW. And then progressed on, went to Georgia. So I've got 26 years of experience in this and have learned a thing or two. I will admit I don't know it all. Learn something new every day, every week. I also am going to admit that I don't know the North Carolina laws on condominiums. I don't know if they're the same laws as we have in Georgia about sales, then I know a little bit about that. So I depend on your participation. And when you participate, you get $1 at least, or a chance at $1. I depend on your participation in this to learn. Okay, next survey question. What is a condominium? Anybody take a guess or no? What is a condominium?
Has shared walls.
Shared walls, okay. A lot of times, yeah, interior. That's a good point. So the shared walls, interior, you're selling the interior. So I'm going to go into the definition of it a little later, but where it comes from is the word con is Greek for share. You may, float into Spanish, chili con carne, chili with meat, right? So to share. And the word dominium is Greek for land, the king's domain, land. So condominium is literally shared land. Kindergarten teacher taught you to share. So you can go buy a condominium because you know how to share. Shared land. And then the last survey question is who's freaked out about the NAR settlement? No, he's not freaked out. Yeah, because you're not freaked out. So there's people in Savannah freaked out as well. We're all, everybody is. I think that the big point of this is we'll learn to adapt and change, and things are going to move forward. We're just kind of waiting for that settlement to happen, maybe a form or two to get changed, and we'll get through it. That's my take on it anyway. All right, HOA versus condominium. So, what HOA, condominium, a neighborhood or building with common interest among the owners. They usually need to have a declaration filed that explains who owns the land and what the condominium or HOA does. They're usually doing some form of maintenance, maintaining the common areas, and can have rules, enforce rules. After the developer's out, the owners are electing a board of directors to manage and govern the condominium. But in reality, it's based on the land. The HOA, and many of you know this, but the HOA, in a HOA or maybe a POA, the land is owned by the individual lot owner. They're subdivided into lots. There may be a house on it. There's a house on it. Owner owns a house and the lot. You'll see them as single-family neighborhoods. You could see townhomes, so not stacked townhomes, but side-by-side townhomes. You'll see that could be an HOA. Depends on who owns the land beneath the building. In a condominium, the owner owns the unit. So the unit, and it could be different based on the condominium. They may own the sheetrock in their unit. They may own the outside walls. They may own more of the building, but they own a unit, and the condominium association owns the land. The key difference between the two. And I don't as much in Savannah get this question from realtors, but I do get it from people who who are looking to buy, and they don't understand who's going to insure what. And that ownership of the land a lot of times plays into who's going to insure and who's going to repair what elements. I'm going to get into the meat of it, though. I don't know this disclosure form. I'm going to admit that right now. But you do have, I looked it up, just like in Georgia, we have a HOA disclosure form, and the seller has to fill it out, complete it, and give the information about the HOA so a buyer can see some information. You have that in Georgia. You know, that's just the top of it, and a screenshot off of a website somewhere. You have that in North Carolina. That's an important part of it, obviously, that the seller is completing that and making sure that that they are accurate in their completion of it. One thing I do see realtors pulling the last one from a sale off of, for us, MLS, and using that for their listing, their seller to sign. We will help out. We will not fill out the form. Some of the management companies here may fill out the form, but in our office, you call us up, we'll answer every question on the form, but we're not filling it out for the seller. We want that to be true seller disclosure, but making sure the seller is actually disclosing what they're supposed to disclose, that the state of North Carolina is saying they're supposed to disclose. And then the real meat of it is getting to the closing, right? So you've got a condo under contract or a home in an HOA under contract. This is the participation part of it. In the participation part, so what are you doing to make sure those things get to closing? I mean, some of it's standard real estate stuff, right? You know, hey, there may be a inspection, home inspection, right? So things like that. But what else are you doing for an HOA? Like, let me ask it this way: what difficulties do you have getting information from an HOA for a closing? There you go. That's the best question.
Yeah. Well, you're also seeing if there's transfer fees.
Yeah, you're seeing it. That's right. And hopefully those are on the disclosure form, right? Yeah, you would hope. Yeah. Assessments, what the assessments are. That's right. Because if I can afford the house, but I can't afford the $500 a month, HOA fee, then I can't buy that house.
Or the $25,000 exterior maintenance assessment that's coming up.
That's right. It doesn't have a special assessment coming, or have they been doing special assessments in the past? So I worked in Cary, right outside Raleigh, for a few years, and we had a townhome community. It was an HOA, and they would every year they would budget their dues low, and every year they would pass a special assessment to cover what they really needed. And the reason the board was doing that was because they wanted, for sales, people to see low dues. Well, that doesn't really work, right? You see the special assessment, and the year before they had a special assessment, the year before that they had a special assessment. You understand that that's not going to help out. So hopefully that's a good point, that you're looking for those things and what was done the last time and the last time before that, to make sure you're not following what this neighborhood was trying to do. What else? What other problems do you have with HOAs?
Well, you just need to get them all the paperwork that was involved in the initial offering of the declarations and the bylaws and the rules and regulations, especially. And they need to know when they can rent, if they can. Is there a list that you have to get on just to be able to rent your place out if you need to? Pets is a big thing. Your customer needs to know if they can bring their pet or not.
So getting the governing documents, the declaration, so you may call it a master deed, you may call it covenants or CC&Rs, the bylaws which tell how the association governs itself, rules and regs, within the declaration, you're going to have a lot of the rules and regs or the basis for the rules and regs. So making sure that the buyer understands what those are, because you got a 50-pound dog, you got a Labrador Retriever, and the max pet size is 15 pounds. You move in, and what do you do with your lab now? So making sure, that's a great point, Sandra, making sure that you have the rules and regs and the documents to review.
Financial health of the organization.
Financial health of the organization.
Any lawsuits?
Any lawsuit, that's right. That's a very good point, because it's not on my next list of slides, but any lawsuits. Are there any active lawsuits? Were they sued in the past? What was it for? We're dealing with a condominium in Savannah. Before we started managing, there were some heavy maintenance problems. There were probably problems that related back to the construction of the building. And bad enough that 5 owners have sued the association for repairs in their unit because things weren't fixed the right way. I think things were fixed the correct way. I think the timing of it, getting to it, may have been part of the problem. They couldn't sue the developer. Developer's long gone. 20 years ago, buildings are 20 years old. And when you get to that point, 5 lawsuits, sales become very difficult, to the point in this association, it's lost any FHA ability to get a loan. So they're not warrantable. So a big problem. Yet knowing that, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting to a closing if somebody really wants to buy in a place that's been sued. Fortunately, they've done all the repairs, and now they're just filling through the settlement. But until the settlements are done, no FHA. Hard to sell a unit in that condominium. And then the financial information. We will not disclose the financial information to the buyer. But guess what? We will give it to the seller. The seller can disclose it in the way they best see fit. I don't want to interrupt any real estate transactions. I'm not giving it to the buyer. I'm giving it to the member, and the member can disclose it. But things like the balance sheet, how much money do they have? Have they been saving up for future repairs? The income and expense statement, are they saving money every year for those future repairs? What are they doing? Where's their money going? So that's a great answer to, or great thing to look for. Okay, what else? You're on my list. So Sandra got declaration, legal documents, bylaws, rules and regs. Warrantability, somebody, I think, brought up that fact. Inspection, I think I said that. Request repairs from the association. Here's a thing that you may have trouble with. You request the HOA or the condominium to make a repair that they're clearly responsible for in their documents. Who determines when that repair needs to be done? So it's the board for the association. So that repair may not, may say, hey, we admit that repair is the association's responsibility, but that repair may not be done for, 3 months or 12 months, or, hey, we're planning that repair now in 2006. That may lose a sale if the buyer doesn't want it, but it's up to the board to determine when those repairs are made. The condominium PUD questionnaires, the mortgage companies, we do a lot of those. We try to turn them around within a day, because if not, then the mortgage companies keep calling us. That's not why. We want to help with the process, but they will call if you don't do it. So, but having those, and I'll tell you what's on those things is a lot of what you're talking about: financial information, how many units are rented out, how many units are can be rented out. Now, because of the condo collapse in Florida, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac because there was not a lot of legislation issued after that. They are the ones who are enforcing condominiums, making sure the buildings are safe. And so they're now, never used to ask this, they're now asking for engineer reports. They're asking for reserve studies. They used to say, do you have a reserve study? Yes, we got a reserve study. Now they say, okay, we want to see it, include it. They're asking for not just the amount you have in reserves, but does it meet that reserve study? Are you actually, is the association actually doing what it needs to do to take care of the building? So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have gotten into the enforcement of safety of buildings because legislation just wasn't quick enough to get through and start. One thing of this waiver of the first right of refusal, this is not that common, but if the documents say that the association has a first right to buy a unit when it goes for sale, typically it's at least at the contract price. You may have to, the closing attorney may have to go ahead and get a waiver of the right of that from the board president or from the manager. And then budget financials, we talked about that, reserves, we mentioned that. These inspection reports or the engineer report, the reports that the association hopefully has in place. Minutes. So we get this occasionally is minutes. And again, we will not give it to the buyer, but we'll give it to the seller. Seller can disclose as they best see fit. But if you can get those minutes, one, if they're not sharing minutes or they don't have minutes to share, is the organization really running the way it should be? You look at the minutes and you can see what the problems are because that's what the board is addressing. And that's a great way to find out information about the condominium association. The other, somebody mentioned lawsuits. So lawsuits, know it. What else you got? I'm gonna go to the questions section. Any questions you have or about what we do as managers when we have a condominium, a unit closing, what questions you may have just about sales of them. And if there's somebody in the room, if I can't answer it, I'm sure there may be somebody in the room that can. Yes.
Are you finding that condo associations are maintaining their 10% reserve from a budgetary, or is that kind of hit or miss?
So the ones we manage are because we know that's a requirement and we don't do a draft budget that doesn't have 10% in it.
Yeah.
I think that you may be on the other end where you see that before we do, where you may see that 10%. I want to just say about that 10%, I believe it's a completely arbitrary number. I'm not sure if it's Freddie Mac or, who came up with 10%, but, mortgage companies look at 10% or 10% of the dues being saved every year for future repairs. But we make sure that happens. The best way to handle that is to get a reserve study, get an engineer to look at the project, calculate out what needs to be done in the next, they do 20, 30 years, but realistically 5, 10 years. And then tell the association, here's what you need to save every year so you can do these projects as they come due. If you're the bank, you have that 10%. I would suggest for buyers that you may want to look, are they actually following what needs to be done? Because if they're not, then that special assessment is coming someday.
One last question.
Yeah.
On the master insurance. Do you notice that your condo associations are carrying like a land and endorsement clause, a law enforcement clause on the master insurance?
A land
Law endorsement.
Law endorsement. So I do not know what that is.
Okay.
And then I think the insurance laws differ state to state so much. I know the Georgia Condominium Act. I know exactly what we are supposed to insure, what we have to insure in Georgia. And I'm just not familiar with North Carolina, but I'm unfamiliar with that. So usually it's a liability insurance cover. You know what liability insurance is. Usually it's the master policy, fire and extended services, include some water loss in there. The insurance claim we see in condominiums the most is water loss, especially if they're stacked, because somebody's toilet's leaking and now it's leaking into the unit below, or air conditioning is leaking into the unit below. So that's usually what we see as water loss. And then fidelity insurance. You may want to ask, do they have fidelity insurance? The banks are. They're asking that. The flood, if they need flood. And then there's some associations who maintain a workers' comp because they have an employee or two landing around. But yeah.
What is fidelity insurance?
So fidelity is crime insurance, or some people may say bonded. I think bonded is actually different, but fidelity insurance is their board president or treasurer or manager walks away with the money, get the policy to cover, and let the insurance company go after the manager or the board president. It's a very common, and I know, embezzlement's common everywhere, but in our industry, I see it 3 or 4 times a year. The board in Florida, in Miami, Florida last year was systematically taking millions of dollars every year from their neighbors. It's sad. A lady outside of Atlanta last year was taking cruises on the dime of the places she managed. So it's very common. Crime insurance, fidelity insurance is an important thing for an association to carry. Anything else? Okay, what I would like to do, I'm going to tell you why I'm here. So the purpose of me coming up here to talk, like why is Alan coming from Savannah to Asheville to talk about this, is I am going to open in Asheville. And this is my first trip to even look at things. So it's just an exploratory trip. Who knows best about the lay of the land? Well, realtors know best about the lay of the land, and I get along with realtors, so why not come and meet some realtors? So that's why I'm here today. We will begin with a product we call Accounting Plus. I'm not ready to do that right now. I need to work with some people in the area to start that. But Accounting Plus is, we do 5 things for HOAs and condos. We do property management, rule enforcement, get bids for vendors, inspect the work. If we can inspect the work, or have an engineer inspect the work, manage the property the association owns. We do financial management, full service bookkeeping, collecting the dues, put it in the HOA's bank account, writing the checks, getting the bills paid for the HOA, producing accurate financial statements for the board and for the HOA to view. We do administrative management, so back office stuff, mailings, keeping the files organized, keeping the minutes on file, and distribute those to the owners. We do some administrative type things. We also do governance support, so we look at the bylaws, we look at the Georgia law in our case, and we go through and we will guide the association if they need to do a special assessment, or if they need to know how to vote on even their board of directors. So we help with governance. And the 5th thing we do is education. Education, we do a monthly webinar, and we go over topics that are important to the board. What was our webinar last month?
Community.
Oh yeah, the events, fun events, like, you're building community, you want to increase property values, wouldn't you like to know your neighbors? So some unique things that some of the associations we manage do, where neighbors get together and have fun, and it's not HOA with people arguing back and forth. We've done ones about preparing for natural disasters. We've done the one we have coming up next week is specific to Georgia, but it's about changes in legislation. We have an attorney, very well-spoken attorney, that'll be on the webinar, talk about specific changes in legislation in Georgia that affect HOAs and condominiums. Most of them are not specific to Georgia. So I would like you to just scan that. That's my phone number. When you scan it, I'm in your contacts. And send me a text if you would like to get the flyers about the webinar series. These are geared toward board members. You're welcome to attend, but they're geared toward board members, and we'll go over topics that will, the disaster management in Savannah. We're mainly going to talk about hurricanes, but you have floods here, right? So, and we'll go over important topics for board members to know. So I'd love for you to do that. When I'm ready to start accepting clients in Asheville, I'll probably be back a couple of times before then, but that's why I'm here. If you ever have a question about an HOA and it's not specific to North Carolina, feel free to give me a call. I'll try to help you out as best I can. Any other questions? A question gets you a card, right? Okay, thank you for having me. I appreciate you being here and those on Zoom too. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.